Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week we're going to the Grand Budapest Hotel. And I mean, who wouldn't want to? It's an institution.
Greetings, here we are, Recently Logged. We're talking about a hotel that's rather grand.
It's so grand, and it's in Budapest.
It's so grand that they made a movie about it, Micah.
They made a book about it.
They made a book about it.
And then they made a movie
about it. But yes, we're talking about Grand Budapest Hotel, which, for those unfamiliar, we will now go over all of the things you need to know about it. I assume most people know what this movie is. It's relatively popular.
Who knows?
But
who knows what people know?
Yes.
But we're back.
We're back. Oh, yeah. That too.
We took a week off. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, people. Christmas time is here.
Christmas time is here.
And it's time for joy and cheer, I think.
That's how it goes.
Okay.
But it's time for Grand Budapest Hotel's basic facts. All right, so again, we are talking about the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is a 2014 movie, rated R. It is an hour and 39 minutes.
Yes, indeed.
This little IMDb description is, a writer encounters the owner of an aging high-class hotel who tells him of his early years serving as a lobby boy in the hotel's glorious years under an exceptional concierge.
Yes.
I can read.
Yes, that is
a very
correct.
confusing description to describe what's happening in the movie.
2014, man, what a year! This is one of the best movies of this decade, I think, like the 2010s, and it has so many just other great films in 2014. But yes,
its cast features Ralph Fiennes, F. Murray Abraham, Matthew Almeric, Adrian Brody, Willem Dafoe, Jeff Goldblum, Jude Law, Bill Murray, Harvey Keitel, Edward Norton, Saoirse Ronan,
shout out to Jude Law,
Jason Schwartzman.
Shout out to Saoirse Ronan for real.
Okay, you know French. What's her name? How do you say her name? Lee Seydoux,
I would assume.
Tilda Swinton. There's a lot of people in Owen Wilson. Why is he all the way down here?
he's like the main character.
Tony
Revolori,
maybe?
I believe so.
Yeah. But I don't know why he's billed all the way down here on IMDb. He is the main character next to maybe Ralph Fiennes.
Right.
It is directed by Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
It is inspired by the work of Stefan Zweig, I think is how you say his name. I don't know. Stefan.
It's probably French, I would assume.
Written by Wes Anderson and Hugo Guinness.
Nice. I mean, I feel like we kind of brand ourselves as a Letterboxd podcast. I feel like most people know about this movie if they're on Letterboxd because it's like the, I don't know, 70th highest rated movie on there.
Yeah, I was about to say, I want to go to get into what it's won. It won 4 Oscars.
Oh, man.
It won Best Achievement in Costume Design, Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Achievement in Music Written for a Motion Picture,
yes, it should,
Original Score specifically, Best Achievement in Production Design, and Best Motion Picture.
Oh, I take it back. It's 150th in the official top 250 films on Letterboxd.
And it was also nominated for Best Directing, Cinematography, Film Editing, and Screenplay, or Original Screenplay, I should say.
Well, there you go. That's all you need to know, I guess. That's the whole thing. Grand Budapest Hotel.
You don't even need to watch it now.
I feel like most people who are even remotely familiar with Wes Anderson's work know about this one.
Well, this is, by all accounts, his biggest movie.
Yeah, his biggest one.
It won Best Picture that year. This was probably his most well-known movie, I would say.
Absolutely. One of his best.
One of his best.
But more on that in the next segment.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's the deal with Grand Budapest Hotel? I mean, come on. They go into the hotel and they commit crime.
They commit war crime.
And then they come out and they get arrested for those crimes. And Saoirse Ronan's a baker.
Yeah, that's pretty
Am
much
I right?
Am I right? That's why it won Best Picture, Micah.
Saoirse Ronan needed to be in it more. She needed
that's your one criticism of the movie.
She needed to talk more. She needed to be more relevant. She needed to be in it more. She needed to be the main character.
I'm so happy they let her use her actual accent in this.
Right, and we got her Irish accent. It's beautiful.
She has such a pretty voice.
And
killing me.
And I was lied to. I thought she was going to be one of the main characters, and although she technically
she's like one of the
she's
characters.
She's like there. She doesn't have very many lines. She's like, "You steal art."
You steal art.
Because that's an Irish accent.
Yeah, I was about to say the worst Irish accent of all time. But
I gotta really commit to do an Irish accent, and saying that is not something that's easy.
Right.
But yeah. That's it. That's all the discussion we need to have.
Well,
that's its biggest fault.
I feel like I have a little bit more to say.
Okay, Robbie, what are your summarized thoughts on Grand Budapest Hotel?
This is probably I think it's very deserving of its title as like the Wes Anderson movie, you know. It absolutely plays to all of his strengths as a director and a writer. His stylistic sensibilities here, that's a lot of S's, are like just really in tune with all of the other aspects of the film, like the production design and the performances, and just the general tone of the movie it's so good. It's very coherent, and I don't know, it's a very compelling screenplay. I like all of the main characters and their performers. I don't know, it's a spectacularly fun time.
Some kind of quote unquote fantastic Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. Really Fantastic Mr. Fox or The French Dispatch are the only rivals in my mind for this being the best Wes Anderson.
I don't think The French Dispatch touches this.
Well, you have a right to your opinion. But it's just a joy to experience, and there's just so many great flavors of filmmaking here. Like there's so many small touches that make it so beautiful and perfect. I think I honestly think it's one of the best of the 2010s.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the Grand Budapest Hotel?
What do I think? That's a great question. Well, I think this is a very smart movie, and I don't use that to be like, oh, it's so smart.
So like, you must not understand
it's not
if you don't like it.
It's not a movie that like thinks or at least acts like it's smart. Like some movies like take, and my girlfriend's gonna kill me for saying this, take like Donnie Darko. It would be 20 times better if it didn't think it was the smartest movie in the world, because it does have a cool smart premise.
I have that same criticism for that guy's other movie that I've seen, The Box.
Oh yeah,
it's very, very similar kind of feel, I think.
Yeah, and again, Donnie Darko is a smart script, but it thinks it's the smartest script.
Yeah.
So like this does not have that vibe, but I mean smart by the fact that it is a very in-depth film. It's a very multi-layered.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways I have from this, because obviously its production is great, its actors are amazing. The story is well paced. It's fun. It's funny. It really, it's technically a marvel, but I feel like that's almost like a given when you go into a Wes Anderson film. Right. So something that really stands out about this for me personally was the 2 times that I watched this, I had completely different experiences, completely different takeaways from the film when I watched it. Because the second time when I watched it with you, I thought it was I ended up finding it a lot more humorous.
Yeah.
I was laughing at it a lot. I was joking around with it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when I watched it at first by myself, my takeaway from it was a lot more melancholy. And I think both of them are very clearly there in the film.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes to show that there's like a lot of depth to this movie, way more so than I think any other Wes Anderson movie I've seen.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
It feels like his style actually meeting its perfect match of kind of story to tell.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times his style is like, oh, that's really awesome. The production design's beautiful. Costumes. All of that is always beautiful.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like unnecessarily so. Take like Isle of Dogs, where it feels just kind of completely wasted on a weird story.
Yeah. Isle of Dogs is so strange.
so this definitely guns for like my favorite Wes Anderson movie. It's probably my favorite. I don't know. I really have a strong connection with Moonrise Kingdom. I really love Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
So those are definitely my top 3, but this one is just so engrossing, I think.
Yeah, and it's such a meaty film, which I did not expect that going into it, but I should have, I think, with how acclaimed it was. But like, there's so much you can take away from this movie.
Yeah,
I love it.
No, and do you have any questions to kick us off to delve? Oh wait. Wait. We didn't. You never say your rating, okay. So then I always forget to say my rating. What did you rate the film, Robbie?
I rated this, if you can even imagine, I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I also gave it a 5 out of 5, if you can even imagine.
Yeah, I'm like, it's one of the best films.
Well, no, but I want to give this, because I always like to do these little segments at the beginning with kind of like a spoiler-free summary where then we say our rating, and if you haven't watched the movie, you could be like, wow, maybe I want to go see that. And then you can leave, watch the movie, and come back. And
no one has ever done that in the history of film podcasts.
And listen to the rest of the episode. That's the idea.
I see.
That is my master plan.
Well, this is your chance, guys. Go watch Grand Budapest Hotel.
It's on HBO.
It's on HBO
Max.
Well, yeah, HBO Max. I always forget that like HBO has another streaming thing. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
But okay.
Questions.
First thing that comes to mind. It's not like a great question or anything.
It's not a great question. Why even ask it?
Well, because I think it's interesting. Okay, maybe it is a great question. What do I know?
What constitutes a great question? Let's get into that.
Okay, what did you think of the way the story is framed? Because that's something that really struck me the first time I watched this.
Yeah, the first time I watched this, that was actually one of the biggest standouts of the movie to me, and kind of a lot of what I took away from it thematically is how it was framed.
It's a very interesting way to frame a movie.
Played a lot into that, because it's layered and layered and layered down into this story that is deceptively simple. Mm-hmm. It is a simple story and kind of a tragic story.
It is, yeah.
It's a story about like a dying way of life, a dying hotel, people dying. It is about a world dying, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think the framing really kind of helps you get into the mindset of that this is something that happened. Like this is a dead thing.
Yeah. It's in the past.
Not in an inherently negative way.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think the framing is one of the most like because I feel like if you just jumped into this, it would be a little bit of like a downer.
It adds a really sweet sense of nostalgia, I think, and not in like it made me nostalgic. It fills the story with a sense of nostalgia for a bygone era, which I think at the heart of Grand Budapest is really just an ode to that sort of like era of hotels and like that era of workforce and dedication to a craft, that sort of thing. Kind of like you see in the French Dispatch.
Yeah. So yeah, I was looking, because I wrote in my review, I was like, it's a hotel giving the illusion of an era told by a guy to a guy who wrote a book being read by a girl.
Yeah.
And you get kind of framed in as the girl, and watching the proceedings with essentially no effect on how they happen, watching kind of the beauty and illusion fade away.
Yeah.
As you see, like, I don't know, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's such a captivating film on so many different levels. Like thematically, it's very captivating. Like the ideas presented are very interesting. The characters are so much fun to watch. I don't know. The framing device is kind of like the cherry on top, honestly, because it wraps it up very nicely, and it allows Wes Anderson to kind of speak his mind on the main story presented there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see the author as kind of a Wes Anderson stand-in in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think it works really well.
Well, again, because you could see this as kind of like, you could see this as kind of a movie, like you said, about kind of the working force and the effort they put into it, and how that becomes kind of a love letter to something. Or you could see it about like specifically like all about a love story and a story of brotherhood.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can read and you can get all of these different, very interesting, all very elaborated on chunks out of this movie.
Yeah.
And they all kind of blend together into the kind of piece that only feels like it could exist behind like 3 framing devices.
Right. I will say, though, I don't know what it is. Something about Jude Law's performance in this really captures me. This is like easily my favorite performance from him, and I don't know why.
Well, I'm not a Jude Law fan, so I think he's passable here.
I don't know. He was a perfect casting for this role, I think. But like the whole movie is really well cast, except for, I don't know, something bothers me about the Owen Wilson cameo. Like he is a character, but like I don't know.
Well, I mean there are a lot of his main cast cameos in the what is it called? The Society of the Crossed Keys or something.
Yeah,
I don't think it's called that, but it's Crossed Keys something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's such an odd and interesting movie to delve into.
It's so good.
I'm trying to think of a good question after that, because I think its framing is very important. In fact, I mean, I did a whole video essay just recently about Moonrise Kingdom, where I spent like 10 minutes talking about its framing device.
I mean, Moonrise Kingdom's framing device is kind of like its whole thing, I think.
Right, like 90% of that is a framing device, but 90% of this is a framing device. I know Wes Anderson is very much obsessed. Not obsessed. I mean, obsessed is a good word. Like Christopher Nolan is obsessed with time. Wes Anderson is kind of obsessed with storybooks in a way.
Like story. He does structure and
he does
stuff
like storybook filmmaking essentially, and I mean that in the best possible way.
Yeah.
I mean, several of his movies are directly book adaptations.
And I mean, even the Grand Budapest Hotel is split up into like 6 chapters or whatever.
Yeah, and framed through a reading of a book.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, again, he loves kind of the ideas presented, the simplicity and complexity presented in simple storybooks.
Absolutely.
And I really love the way he kind of delves into the different layers of them.
Yeah. No, it's really like I feel like anytime I praise this movie, I'm like, it just makes me want to watch it again, you know?
All right. Well, what do you think? What do you think of Ralph Fiennes?
Ralph Fiennes.
What do you think of his character?
Mike is slowly turning into a dog on the podcast.
What do you think of his character? Because he's a very interesting character.
He's a very interesting.
And he's given a lot of importance. He is part of like the main emotional core of the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I was about to bring something up about him, but you can't really talk about his character without bringing Zero into it, because they're very much written for each other.
Yeah, I mean, bring up Zero. Go for it.
I don't know. They're a very enticing pair. Like he's a prestigious concierge at a very grand hotel that's on the decline, and Zero's like this up and coming refugee of war immigrant.
I was about to say a refugee of war immigrant who's been tortured and has nothing.
Exactly, who very much has nothing. And I think the mentorship is honestly one of the most compelling, if not the most compelling thing about this movie. Their relationship and the way it grows. And I don't know, something about the balance of respect that happens in this movie, like the way it shifts throughout the movie, it's very sweet to me. I like it a lot.
Yeah, because there's a very clear like relationship arc between Zero and, what is it, Mr. Gustavo?
Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
I believe so.
I don't remember.
I feel like that's wrong now. Dang it.
Okay, I don't remember if Gustavo is him or if it's the other guy, like Zero.
Yeah.
Gustav,
yes.
No.
Gustavo.
Who knows any of these things?
Wow.
But no, like the relationship kind of arcs between, like, you know, him not really knowing him interviewing him teaching him, then him kind of being on his own for the beginning of the prison, and then him kind of fighting, and then him relying on Zero.
Yeah.
And it's very compelling to watch their relationship grow, especially when Zero is kind of presented as this character. And again, the framing of his introduction is very important. He's a character who is essentially, he's got nothing.
He has no holdings in the world.
He has no past. Yeah. He has he has a past, but he has effectively no past that's delved into with any meaning in the movie. He has no family. He has no connections. He just appears in the hotel, essentially.
Right. Yeah. Just kind of shows up from our narrative. He just kind of is there.
And I think that's a really important framing for how his character works and what makes his character so compelling to watch under a very interesting character of like, I don't know, something about Gustav is odd, especially the framing of all of his, like the way he kind of sleeps around with all of the women at the hotel.
No, his characterization in this movie has always been very, I don't know, interesting to me. Not in a bad way.
Yeah, he's just kind of an odd character in general to place your finger on.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's partially on purpose. Because he's very much supposed to be the entire time almost putting up an illusion. The entire time supporting a fantasy that he lives through.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that he wants other people to live through.
Yeah, no, I mean, his whole thing with the Grand Budapest Hotel, in my eyes, was preserving a prestige that wasn't really all that viable.
A prestige that was barely there to begin with.
Yeah. But he buys into it 100%. I don't know. He's such an interesting character. That really struck me the first time I watched this movie. I'm like, man, like what's going on here?
And the way he dies too is especially interesting. I know you mentioned before we were recording that you didn't know exactly what like all the war stuff meant in this.
Yeah, the war is a surprise, like a much bigger part of this movie than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I don't have any answer. I mean, I've seen this movie twice, and I watched it for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But like the very soul of Ralph Fiennes' character becomes basically a barracks for the war near the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a very interesting way to raise the character stakes, which I don't know. I really like it. But.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like a lot of the movie is kind of constantly, even that kind of constantly showing like just the progression and kind of the loss of a lot of the prestige of like even like love and life
that we live
through, the artistry of life.
Yeah.
And you know, war is obviously one of the biggest anti that things.
Exactly.
So
no, it makes sense.
As the war goes on kind of in the background of the film, and it goes through two different governments essentially.
Yep.
And he manages to scrape through the first encounter merely on the fact that somebody's mom, who just so happened to be there, just so happened to be at his hotel at one point.
Yeah.
And the next time that it happens, it gets him killed.
Yep.
And it's just like a very interesting. He's such an interesting character,
right? He feels like some mythic character, man. Like,
which again is what the movie wants to tell you.
Yeah.
But I have another question, because I think this is very interesting for talking about this movie, because a lot of the movie feels like it's building towards just their relationship, like building towards the reason why he has the Grand Budapest, because that's kind of the idea.
I mean, that's how they frame the whole
that's how they frame it. The hotel is dying, nobody goes there, it's falling apart. Why does this super rich guy buy this hotel, stay in this small room, and like what is it all about?
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting that its final what was it all about kind of gets split into the story of Gustav, where it kind of frames him as this mythic heroic being,
kind of a tragic character
doomed to die, versus the reason why he actually stays in the hotel being Agatha, who is a barely touched on character. And his whole, like, we were happy for a time when they were there for, like, very little amount of time.
Right.
They were married for, like, 3 years.
It's such a short span, but, man.
And the way she dies, too. Like, the framing of how she dies. Like, it's like...
She dies off screen.
She dies off screen, but not only that, she dies off screen by a disease that is easily curable by the time he's even telling this story. He's like, they cure this now in like a week. Yeah. But back then, millions of people died from it.
Yeah.
And it's just layers, guys, listeners, people I'm talking to. It's layers, and there are so many of them.
Right. I feel like you could just like pick up just about any scene from this movie and just like extract a bunch of different details that all have some sort of thematic stake in the movie.
And again, I don't feel like all of them, and I think this is part of the brilliance of this film, I don't think you could nail this film down as being about one thing.
Yeah, you can't just be like, oh, it's about hotels. Like,
you couldn't be like, oh,
the prestige of hotels, because it's about much more than that.
And you can't be like, oh, it's just about their relationship, because it's about much more than that.
Exactly.
And like every individual element kind of blends together. And again, in a way that I often only see Wes Anderson do in his, again, kind of storybook style, of which he's painting a picture of an idea, and that picture of an idea is exploring all of the different elements of that idea through characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a staple of Wes Anderson, in my opinion.
Vignettes I think is a better, more fitting term for that.
Vignettes.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what that means.
It's like a sectioned off, you know how like a shadow box is?
Yeah. I mean, I know what a vignette is when you put it on like a photo.
Yeah, no, but like a vignette as an idea, like if you were to make a shadow box about one thing, that would be like a vignette of that one thing, you know? Like it's something that is almost closed and is about one simple idea or something like that, you know. It's a focused thing, a focused narrative.
Yeah, well, like again, like I mentioned in my Moonrise Kingdom video that I did, I feel like I don't know, the word character just comes to mind, in the fact that none of the people typically behave like actual human beings. And that's kind of a staple of Wes Anderson's work. But yet they often become extremely emotionally compelling,
right? Because
of the grand picture that they typically are painting together.
I would argue, besides maybe Fantastic Mr. Fox, that this is the most emotionally involving Wes Anderson film. Bear in mind, I haven't seen Darjeeling Limited or Rushmore, and I think Life Aquatic either. So I have not seen any of those, but I think of the ones I have seen, this is the most like emotional I've gotten watching a Wes Anderson film.
This or Moonrise Kingdom, for me.
But it always just strikes me how deeply human all of the characters are in Grand Budapest, even though they don't really behave like typical people.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And that's what one of the things I was highlighting in my Moonrise Kingdom video is that these people are extremely, oftentimes more so than any person would ever be, vulnerable with each other. They speak plainly. They speak completely clearly to each other about their wants. They even are over dramatic about their wants and needs and desires and dislikes. They are characters of actual people. And the way that kind of works off of each other with Wes's specific style and the way he goes about writing allows them to be just extremely like compelling and investing if done correctly. Yeah,
I think a good example of that sort of thing not being done well is something like See How They Run. If you have watched that movie, it's a very, I think I would describe it as a Wes Anderson riff.
Yeah, it feels very Wes Anderson-y.
But it kind of fails in that regard. Like none of the characters really ever connect with me at all. To any extent, really. Which even something like Isle of Dogs manages to do by the end.
Yeah, there's some like interesting stuff going on with Isle of Dogs characters.
Which Isle of Dogs is very much a kind of more a straight up, it's meant to be like an ode to dogs, and it has some stuff to say about war and, you know, protest and like political activism and stuff like that, but it never feels as fully fleshed out as something like this.
And I'll say this again, because I think and often I think that's why a lot of his stylistic sensibilities feature more towards plays, because I think plays are the more storybook art form in general.
Oh, they are, for sure.
In terms of how they can deliver stuff to you.
Yeah.
But I think he's always, in all of his movies that I have seen, which again, I've only seen about half of his movies, and all of the movies that I have seen of his that work well are moving towards this painting, this idea in my mind.
Yeah.
This idea, and I'm assuming his mind, of this thing he wants to touch on, and everything kind of fits perfectly into its puzzle. It makes it very satisfying. When done correctly, there are layers and cool things to get into, and it's funny, and it that's like the core of Wes Anderson's films. They're usually very simple in concept, and I think where his style does not work as well, take Isle of Dogs, or even See How They Run, something not done by him, but it does feel very
it's a riff on his style, for sure.
they don't have clear pictures. Like it's like a painting, but it's muddled.
Yeah, if you ask me,
it's like dogs playing poker.
If you told me to picture Grand Budapest Hotel in my mind, I could very clearly see like all of its different elements, and it forms one very cohesive piece that is like the Grand Budapest Hotel. If you ask me to picture Isle of Dogs, I picture like 6 different things, and I'm like,
it's confused,
what?
It's muddled.
Yeah,
and because it's muddled, his direct style and his simple, like toned back, almost dry dialogue.
It's a very minimal take on film most of the time.
Yeah, which I think leans more into stage.
Exactly.
Things.
Yeah,
he essentially directs plays with really using the medium of like film.
He uses the advantages of film and the advantages of stage plays. I think perfectly in this movie. He marries them perfectly.
Yeah, I think the one that feels, I was actually going to mention this, the French Dispatch actually feels more play-esque.
Oh, it feels like a straight up stage play. Does. For a lot of it.
Many times it literally just feels like a stage play.
Yeah.
But I feel like even it does not work as well because I feel like its painting is not as fully, and not all things are driving towards what it's trying to paint its picture as. I thought its picture was a little muddled, to continue this metaphor.
I don't know, man. I could see an argument for it. I don't think it's as sharp as Budapest, but I don't think it's muddled, really.
Well, and the only reason I'm talking about this long when talking about Grand Budapest Hotel, like I think Wes Anderson is a very unique creator, and I think this lies at the core of all of his work that I have seen.
Absolutely.
That with his style, and he has a style, these things have to, like, his simplicity has to be channeled into the right things for it to work.
It has to be rooted in the right things, really.
Yeah. And Grand Budapest, again, somehow perfectly lines, like every brush stroke, every turn of the page is just brilliant, leading you into the next with intrigue and comedy and something important and interesting to say about the different characters and what they mean in each scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a masterwork of film, like, honestly, at the end of the day. Like, beyond its absolutely brilliant production design and cinematography and like just technical aspects, like the costume design, obviously, it's just like an absolute joy of a film to watch. Like, it's electric, really. Yeah, in the way it's paced and edited and performed, it's fantastic.
I was about to say, and I think to tie back to what I said in the beginning, one of the things that changed so drastically in my first viewing versus my second viewing is it's kind of like, you know, reading or watching or whatever any tragedy, like any tragedy play or something like that. Like take Shakespeare for a good example, because he does a lot of like comedic tragedies.
Yeah.
And like the first time around, you get sucked into like the depth of the tragedy, because for me, I did not know what this was going to be about. I knew nothing really about Grand Budapest Hotel.
Like, it's about a hotel.
Besides the fact that it was about a hotel. So I got extremely invested into this falling apart world and all of these different elements that end in essentially tragedy. But despite that, it's a very hopeful look at all of them. It's very kind of upbeat and nostalgic look.
Like I said, I think nostalgia is very much a big element here.
And then you take the second time around and you know what's going on, and you know what's going to happen, and you know essentially that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And even if it's not inherently okay. And you end up kind of getting wrapped up into this, like enjoying each of the scenes kind of more while they last, enjoying each of these moments. Each of these sweet moments hit a lot harder between him and Agatha, even though I felt, because I was about to say on the second time around, I felt Agatha worked a lot more.
Yeah, her presence is a lot more felt a second time around, I think.
Yeah, because especially her character introduction, when it's just a long shot of her like biking through the streets, and he kind of cries and wistfully looks at this. You're just, first time around, you're like, what's the story with that?
That was a little funky.
And the second time around, you kind of get caught up in this, because at the end of the day, Grand Budapest is a story made to be retold, as most tragedies are.
Yeah.
And the second time around, you kind of go a layer deeper into the framing device, and you're no longer just the girl reading the book. You're now also the author.
Yeah.
And then you're also Zero.
Yeah.
And you get more and more layers deep into it, and you don't look at it as an inherent tragedy. It's also a comedy. And it's
a very funny movie.
It's funny. It's cool. It's
so
interesting.
funny.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
You get to enjoy all of these different elements. And I think it just blows my mind.
It's a masterwork, dude. Like, there's a reason it's in the top 150 on Letterboxd. Like, it's beautiful. It's kind of overwhelming, honestly. Like,
yeah.
The fact that someone could make something like this.
No, and I think you gotta watch this more than once, because I think that at the heart was why the framing works. To go back to our first question, is because each different time you watch it, it can kind of pull you deeper and deeper through the layers. You can watch it
from however many different perspectives you want, and every scene works as its own little thing. You know, like it's not that it feels segmented, but each scene gives you something different. And I really like that. It makes for a really interesting and fun watch.
And also I'll mention, too, because you mentioned the chapters in Grand Budapest Hotel, and there's also chapters in, like, Isle of Dogs.
Yes, there are.
And to compare those two, the chapters in Isle of Dogs feel like these weird breaks in the plot.
They don't really feel necessary.
Yeah, they feel completely unnecessary.
Like, they feel like they're kind of tacked on. Like, it's a nice framing device, I guess. Like, it makes it feel a little more novel as you're going through it. You're like, oh, okay, like, we're entering the next part of the story.
Well, yeah, because it's just not that interesting of a plot.
No, it really is.
But
that's really the biggest problem with Isle of Dogs, is it's just not that interesting.
But then you take Grand Budapest, and I was thinking about, like, where the different segments are break up. And it feels so natural to the story, and it almost feels like he could be like getting a different meal course. Like, it feels structured not inherently like a book chapter, even though that's kind of what it's presenting, but it feels almost more like somebody telling you a story.
It feels like a life chapter is what it feels like. It feels like someone's remembering a certain era of their life.
Yeah, but that in a story form. Like
exactly.
It specifically very much has the vibe of this is being told to you.
Yeah.
This is like from a human telling a story directly.
Absolutely.
It's just such a cool movie. What can I say?
Right? Oh my goodness, dude. Go on like this much longer, I'm going to be like, forget Fantastic Mr. Fox. This one's my favorite.
I think, again, I honestly think this has way more depth than Fantastic Mr. Fox. This is probably his objective that I have seen best film.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
But that doesn't inherently mean it's my favorite.
Yeah.
But man, it might grow to be my favorite over the years, because like even just a second rewatch.
Yeah, just one rewatch, and I already love it so much more. Like, and I already adored it.
Yeah. It just, the way it's written, it's one of those kind of stories, one of those kind of films that you can get something different out of each time you watch it. And I think that kind of shows its brilliance.
It feels like you're returning to a sweet memory every time you come back to watch it. You know? You're like,
again, it feels kind of like remembering kind of how this movie is framed, like remembering dead relatives.
Absolutely.
Or a place you used to love growing up in, or that, again, it's very nostalgia fueled, not for you the viewer, but for tapping into that, how it feels to be nostalgic for not movies or something like that, but for actual people and things,
for a time, like for a feeling, a memory.
And it, you know what? I think that's kind of beautiful.
It is. It's a beautiful movie. It is a deeply beautiful and hilarious and sweet movie, and I think I'll always adore it.
Okay. We've delved into all the serious stuff. Let's put it behind us. It's in the past.
Wow.
What's your favorite like comedic bit or something? Because I feel like there's not too much to cover in the movie.
There's so many good ones, but honestly, the one that kind of stood out the second time around, it was one of my favorites the first time, is the crossed keys montage. It's so funny, especially the one where they're trying to put out the fire, and he hands his little lobby boy the axe. He's like, take over. That one's really good. I'm trying to think of another one that like just had me like
on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of another one.
I really love, and I know it's just, I saw somebody post this before I ever watched the movie, but I really love the kind of like visual bit of the punching, like the punch out scene, where somehow like it completely breaks the logic of framing for them all to be in the same spot punching each other in the same motion.
It's so funny.
And it's really funny.
It's so hilarious, dude.
And there's so many lines, like one-off lines here and there that are just absolutely hilarious.
I will say, I think some of the funniest material in this entire movie is just like is just birthed from the performances.
Yeah, I was
like
about to say just like watching Zero's
the small
eyes.
Expressions. Yeah,
you could like there's an entire comedy going on in Zero's eyes.
Right.
And
every little side glance he does is so funny to me.
And yeah, like this movie is just like, again, deeply funny and heartwarming, which again, you got to take both sides of what I'm talking about. All of the stuff that I just went on and on about, plus all of the comedic stuff in this is part of what makes it thematically work as like remembering like a dead relative or something.
Yeah,
because
looking
you
back
remember
remember
all the good times, you remember all the fun memories, all the exciting stuff.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's hilarious. It's funny. I really love. It's not inherently a comedic bit, but I find it funny when they're skiing down the one like little slope area, and they just look so goofy, like because they're miniatures and they just like they just look so, they don't look real at all, and neither does the slope, and they just are moving so fast. It's hilarious to me.
I would argue it's a comedic bit, Mike.
I love that, and like Willem Dafoe's entire character, I really love in this.
I don't know why. I did not like Willem Dafoe in this the first time I watched it, but he did grow on me.
He's so goofy.
He is, but like I don't know.
He's comedically evil.
Something didn't sit right with me the first time I watched it. I'm like, I feel like he could be funnier, but on the second time around, I'm like, yeah, no, this is pretty great.
I think he works pretty perfectly.
Yeah.
He throws the cat out the window.
That is so good. His death is surprisingly hilarious and like also kind of shocking at the same time. It's good.
Oh yeah. Speaking of his death, I didn't even mention, because another one of those thematic things that I wanted to mention was the poetry, because there's a lot of poetry. Oh yeah,
there's quite a bit of poetry,
and it more or less plays into stuff we already talked about. I just wanted to mention it because I thought it was especially notable. But I think one poem is allowed to be finished in the entire course of the movie. One poem
I believe you're correct.
Is given, and it's Agatha who reads it. And I think that means something.
It means something.
It means something to me.
Film essayists, get on this. Tell me what it means.
I am a film essayist, darn it. But no, just like I thought, like that specifically stood out to me the first time I watched it. Every time he would go into these very romantic poems, and not even like romantic as in like romance, but like romantic as in a style of writing.
Yeah.
And he would go into these romance poems, and then every single one of them would be interrupted.
Yeah.
And even his little death poem is interrupted. And as it goes on, and he starts to kind of drop his facade a little bit more to you as an audience, he even is the one like cutting off several of his poems. Even the one before he dies, he cuts off. The one in the train car. And it just kind of shows the deterioration throughout the movie of this complete prestige. Yeah. That was never there. He never finishes a poem.
Exactly.
They eat over his poem that he reads during dinner. The movie cuts away every time.
Yeah.
Like it never really was a thing. But what was his love for Agatha. Yeah. That was something real. And she is allowed to finish a poem.
There you go, Micah. You figured it out. No, I think that's a good reading of it, actually.
Well, I've been doing video essays for 2 years. I hope I have some media literacy.
Right,
I don't know.
at this point.
I hope so. Maybe people listening to this podcast are always like, what the heck is this guy talking about?
What's he talking about?
What is this, junior film class time?
Amateur night in Dixie.
Is this amateur night in Dixie? Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I get good meaning out of how I read films. And this is one that I feel like you could pick apart with different meanings a million different ways while also enjoying it.
There's
and
a lot
also
here,
being snappy and it also being really, really fun and pretty and fun performances that are very, very memorable.
It's quite frankly one of the most like overwhelmingly beautiful and meaningful films I've ever seen, I think. Is a good way to describe it.
Which is goofy, given the nature of the film.
Right. They're like on the run from the law and getting into like slapstick shenanigans sometimes. It's fun. It's a good movie.
And again, I feel like that it just treads its balance perfectly.
It really
comedy
does.
And this inherent tragedy of the entire world that takes place in ending, essentially.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man.
But yeah. I don't really have anything else to say. Do you have anything else
there's not too much to add, really. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to get something different out of it than I did. Anyone is going to get something different out of it than I did.
I was about to say, you could have a completely different reading of the film from me or from Robbie or from anyone.
And it's I don't know, I think it's a really beautiful movie. You should go watch it.
You should go watch it if you're okay with the content.
If you are up to watching a R-rated movie, go watch it.
An R-rated comedy by Wes Anderson.
By Wes Anderson, yes. But it's so good. Is there anything else you want to add?
All right, cool. I feel like we covered it well.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go into our next segment, our What We Watched segment. All right, so for those of you who have never made it this far into the podcast or are new to the podcast or whatever.
Whatever, dude.
Whatever. Maybe
it's none of my business,
maybe
man.
Like your headphones died and you just never felt like finishing the episodes before or something. But if you've never made it to this section, the What We Watch section is a little thing we do on the end, sometimes not so little, especially when we take weeks off.
Yeah.
Where we talk about everything we've seen since our last episode, giving brief thoughts, a rating, and so on.
Yeah.
It should be...
Let's do it.
We try to be brief. We try.
We can try.
We're going from the 14th until now.
Yes.
The 28th again, I think. 14th to 28th. That's kind of impressive. It's the double days, right?
Double day.
We've doubled.
Wow. Who'd have thought
but yeah, what did we watch on the 14th, Remy?
On the 14th, we sat down and we watched Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Whoa, I feel like we were just talking about that.
We did a whole episode about it.
I feel like we were talking about this guy.
We did.
What is this Wes Anderson guy?
This Wes Anderson.
Actor in Sing 2, Wes Anderson.
Absolutely. Fantastic Mr. Fox, it's great. If you haven't seen it, go watch it right away.
Yeah.
Please.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I also gave it a 5 out of 5.
You can believe it.
It was my 13th viewing of it, Mike.
Then on the 14th, I watched Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird.
Whoa.
I love Saoirse Ronan. Love Greta Gerwig. Greta Gerwig literally directed what's like my favorite movie, and I hadn't seen Lady Bird yet. And like Saoirse Ronan's like my favorite actress, and I hadn't seen Lady Bird yet.
Mike is like, it's the greatest collaboration, man.
And this is close to being one of my favorite movies right now.
Fair.
Especially for being the age of most coming of age teen story things. But I like to think a little bit more mature than Lady Bird.
That shows how immature you really are, Micah.
No, Lady Bird's pretty immature. It's a very interesting, and it was a very deeply human experience.
Nice.
I know especially Houston mentions all the time how humanistic Greta Gerwig's styles are.
Houston Coley.
Yeah.
Good friend of the podcast.
And I really feel like this captures so much of the mindset of being that age and growing up with all of these different things and religion. And I don't know, it's very cool. It's such a beautiful movie, really, honestly.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it, man.
Fantastic. I wrote a really good review on it. Go read that.
Mike is like, go read the review. Don't listen to what I'm saying right now.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
All right. On the 15th, I watched Leap of Faith, William Friedkin on The Exorcist. It's a little documentary about The Exorcist. And it was quite good.
A little documentary.
And now I feel like I need to watch The Exorcist.
Wow.
Because it gave me a great respect for the film, and I haven't even seen it yet. So it was a cool documentary. I gave it a 4 out of 5. And later that evening, I watched Night of the Coconut, which for those familiar, Patrick Willems or Patrick H. Willems, depending, has a YouTube channel, and this was like the series finale for the overarching narrative that's present in all of his videos, and it was very good.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was fun. It was cool. Patrick is actually killing the acting game in this for some reason. Like, it's a genuinely great performance. And it's just cool, especially if you're a big fan of the channel, which I started watching right after the pandemic like began, like a little before that. So it was cool to witness. I liked it a lot. And you should check out Nebula too, because that's what it's streaming on.
Go on to Nebula, my streaming service, and you can
but I gave it a 4 out of 5. Great film.
And then on the 15th, I watched Tower Heist with the likes of Ben Stiller, Matthew Perry.
Matthew Perry?
Matthew Perry. Or Matthew Broderick,
I was about to say, I don't remember Matthew Perry being in that movie.
I don't know. You can't tell me to remember the different Matthews, the comedy Matthews. They all look the same. They all sound the same.
Wow. I don't know what to make of that statement.
It was not very good.
Tower Heist.
It's the Thanksgiving classic. It's got
Is there a turkey in it?
It's got Eddie Murphy.
It's got Eddie Murphy.
It's got a turkey.
Eddie Murphy can be good.
Turkey blimp.
Turkey blimp.
It's not very good.
That's what makes it a stone cold Thanksgiving classic.
2.5. It's got the Shrek blimp balloon too.
Hey. That makes it a classic in my eyes, honestly.
Well, it's got the Thanksgiving parade. The heist takes place around that Thanksgiving parade.
Well, then the next day, night of the 16th, I watched
of the 16th.
Yeah, I watched You've Got Mail, which is a loose adaptation of Shop Around the Corner, which I was a big fan of.
I saw the end of this.
Yeah. It was really good. I don't know. I didn't expect it to be good. I had heard really good things about it. I wasn't a big fan of Nora Ephron's Bewitched adaptation, so I didn't go into it with high hopes, but You've Got Mail, really fun, really sweet. Tom Hanks is really good. Meg Ryan's really good. And, you get to see Steve Zahn with, like, really long hair, and it's just a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I can't see, like, saying too much else about it, honestly. It's a solid adaptation and a good time.
Nice.
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Then actually earlier that day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I watched this. Remember, I got home while you guys were finishing this.
That's true, yeah.
I ran over to my girlfriend's house and we watched Donnie Darko, which is one of her favorite movies.
Lady Gaga classic, Mike. This is one of her favorite films.
It's a cult classic.
It is a cult
It's a very odd movie. This is my first time watching it.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned it earlier. It's got that kind of vibe that I don't like about it in terms of it thinks it's super smart. But in this instance, unlike The Box, it actually is a pretty darn good screenplay.
Yeah.
It presents very interesting ideas, but I feel like it just gets caught up in too many other stupid things to really fully explore them to the depth that I would like.
There you go.
It just kind of feels caught up in its own vibes,
I really want to see it. I'm very interested.
But there's good performances, an interesting concept, interesting execution. Like, everything about the film is interesting, just not always good.
In a good way.
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, that's a solid rating, man.
I think it's a solid movie.
It's a solid movie.
Then on the 17th, I rewatched Whiplash. It was the first 4K I watched when I got my PS5. And it looked beautiful, amazing, perfect. Whiplash is a fantastic movie, probably one of the best that's ever done it.
Yeah, probably.
And a second time around, it was amazing.
Another 2014 movie, Mike.
2014. 2014,
Great year
Ravi,
for
2016. Think of 2016, 2017. I mean, come on.
Yeah, man.
Then on the 18th, what did we watch, Ravi?
We watched Crossword Mysteries: A Puzzle to Die For.
Wow.
And it was, it could have been worse.
Ravi, it's got Gretchen Wieners.
It's got the lady who played Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls, and she's not terrible here.
But she is like the worst protagonist ever.
Right. I don't know, man. It's exactly kind of what I expected from it. And not in a good way necessarily.
It's interesting because there are multiple of these
crossword mysteries.
No, of these like Hallmark movies I've been watching where for some reason the female lead protagonist is kind of a jerk. both of these that I watched, like they're genuinely,
she's kind of an unlikable character.
They give no allowance for people. Like they're just like ugh. ugh.
Right? They have no sympathy or empathy for anyone around them. They're just like, ugh, I can't believe
I
they
know
would
that
do that.
guy. That
Yeah.
guy's a jerk.
That guy's a jerk.
What is he trying to do? Solve a murder? I know my crosswords.
Dude.
I don't
I
know.
will admit the crossword aspect of it was kind of novel and fun, but like,
I give it a 2 out of 5.
I also give it a 2 out of 5.
It's not novel. It's not. Don't listen to him.
No, I said it's kind of novel. I didn't say it was good.
Then the very next day, on
On the 19th of November.
we watched Don't Worry, Darling.
Don't Worry, Darling. And Micah, what did you think of the film?
What did I think of the film? I think it is a very odd film because I like several elements of the film. Florence Pugh is amazing. Chris Pine is really good. Harry Styles is bad. It looks interesting.
Yeah.
It has interesting mysteries presented, but it sure doesn't do much with any of those elements.
Sure is pretty boring.
Pretty boring. Pretty mid.
Yeah, not great.
I did not like the mystery. I did not like the reveal. Literally, an element on the poster goes completely unexplained.
It's like the most boring version of a really good movie.
Yeah, it's like there's a cool concept in there, and everything's just been twisted to be the most like almost bland version.
Yeah, no.
Besides like Florence Pugh and Chris Pine's performances.
It's literally the most boring interpretation of this premise and aesthetics that you could have. Like, I could imagine a much more complex and engaging movie with these like same story beats and aesthetics.
And it also feels like it gets weirdly caught up on its own, or like eroticism.
Right?
Like it has
It's
no
so
reason
weird.
to like
It's not
focus
about
this much on
sex.
sex.
It's not about sex.
And again,
At least what's in the text.
Olivia Wilde's like only female pleasure. Yeah.
It's so
and like
weird,
that has
dude.
no thematic relevance to the movie.
Right? That's not what the movie's about at all.
In
Like,
fact, it kind of goes against what the movie is trying to present this world as all about.
it's so strange.
Like
dude.
it literally it goes directly against the whole ooh men bad thing that the
Right.
movie flips on it.
So it's like it really is like Sucker Punch in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Where I can
honestly.
imagine a much cooler and better version of the story, but it just like completely
But, like,
falls on its
see,
face
and I
most of the
understood
time.
Sucker Punch because Zack Snyder made it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't understand this one.
Yeah, this one's actually like directed by a woman who seemed to know what she was doing for a time.
Right? Booksmart is pretty darn acclaimed
Yeah.
still.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard very good things about it. But like, I don't know.
And this was
man.
just kind of bad.
Yeah.
And so it still wasn't like the worst thing in the world. I give it a 2.5. It's not like the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not
It's just-
completely unenjoyable. But
The
it's
decisions
just,
are so bafflingly bad. Like, it just makes so many bad choices.
none of the creative decisions mesh. The plot doesn't even fully make sense.
But,
there
like-
seems to be like 90 ideas that they just decided to drop,
Yeah.
but yet keep in.
There's some good stuff here. Like, again, the production design and costuming is neat, and the performances are sometimes fun. But I don't know. It is not enough to redeem it in my eyes. I gave it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then on the 20th,
The 20th.
I witnessed the rise of the Northmen.
He witnessed the rise of the Northmen, finally.
Finally.
After all these years.
It came out this year.
Really? That's kind of hard to believe, honestly. It feels like a lifetime
It's a
ago.
2022 movie,
That's
baby.
crazy.
I mean, we're almost done with 2022.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But dude, I loved The Northman. My first Robert Eggers film.
I can't wait to see his movies, dude.
I think my first. I guess maybe.
No, you've seen him in other
Oh
stuff.
yeah, The Giver. He's in The Stupid Giver.
He's in Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah, whatever. The first real Alexander Sarsgaard.
First real movie.
I'm gonna be honest.
Ouch.
Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Dude, Ethan Hawke, my
Willem
man.
Dafoe. This movie is stacked, and this movie goes 110% of the time. And
Heck yeah.
honestly, I totally understand why Robert Eggers was just like depressed after making this, because why didn't this pop off? Like, why was it not like
After it underperformed.
like after it underperformed?
Okay.
He was depressed after making it because it just like he was like, I don't know if I'll ever make something like this again, because he put so much time and money into it and it just did not do that well.
Yeah.
And I don't like, I put in my review, I don't understand how this isn't becoming like the next like Gladiator or something in terms of like completely revitalizing like that subgenre of weird historical.
Is it really that good?
Yeah,
Like,
I
what?
think so.
That's crazy.
Like, I think it is genuinely executing what it's trying to do at like 110% all the way throughout, and I enjoyed pretty much every moment of it.
I gotta see this.
I think the cinematography is beautiful. I think the performances are great. I think it's brutal and fun and a really cool take on the story that inspired Hamlet. So that's cool. That's cool.
You gotta love it.
I loved it.
I want to see it, man.
I gave it a 5 out of 5, if you can believe it.
What? That's crazy.
Then also on the 20th, I watched Holiday Engagement. It had a terrible protagonist who was awful to the main love interest until she wasn't, and it was viewed as his like character arc, but it was bad. 2 stars. Then what did we watch, Rebby?
Then we pulled an all-nighter because we were about to leave town, and we watched Blade Runner
as you do before you leave town.
as you do before you leave town. We watched Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Which, as you may know, we were pretty big fans of Blade Runner. I'm a pretty big Ridley Scott guy, I like to think.
and I had talked about Blade Runner 2049, I think last episode we did.
It was either last episode or 2 episodes ago. And lo and behold, it is really fantastic.
One of the best sci-fi movies ever made, probably.
Yes, definitely, I would say. And I think this kind of cements Denis as like probably the best sci-fi director of my lifetime. Like between this, Arrival, Dune, like he's unmatched, really. I really don't see anyone else doing it like him.
I love Denis Villeneuve.
I loved it even more than the first one, which I adored the first one. It's editing, its cinematography, the production design, the sound design, the costuming, the score, the lighting.
Everything
acting,
is amazing.
The direction.
Everything is amazing in it, honestly.
It's unbelievably good, really.
I don't know how he pulls it off. I want to see it in a theater so bad. It better have some anniversary run or something.
Dude,
sometime.
It's got to have an anniversary run. I would kill to see this thing in theaters.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I also gave it a 5 out of 5. It's gorgeous.
Then the very next day, I watched Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas for the very first time.
Yeah.
And
my boy Martin.
It's a freaking masterpiece, if you can even believe it.
Yeah.
It's so like I don't even know how to begin to talk about this movie, but it's so brilliant. It's so interesting. It's so engaging. It's like 3 hours long, and it feels like it feels more engaging than like 90% of 90-minute movies I've seen.
That's crazy, bro.
Like it's just so good.
That's the power of Martin Scorsese, I guess.
And it's not my favorite thing in the world. It really didn't like mean it. I didn't get emotional from anything, and it's goofy, but it's so much fun to be in. It's such a
nice.
It's like if The Godfather was on like cocaine and Martin Scorsese.
Nice.
It's just fun and wild and goofy and a great time.
Cool. I can't wait to watch it, dude. It looks amazing.
I give it a 5 out of 5.
Nice.
Then right after, what did we
followed
watch?
it up?
I followed it up. The double feature to end all double features.
We watched Minions: The Rise of Gru.
Goodfellas and The Rise of Gru. Both about crime organizations.
Yeah.
Organized crime.
Both kind of masterpieces.
And a young up and coming criminal who just all his life wants to be a criminal.
Wanted to be a criminal for as long
as at the end, if you stretch your vision all the way to the end of Despicable Me 3, who ends his life in the monotony of modern age.
Oh my god.
Of the modern day. So if you think about it, Gru is Ray Liotta from Goodfellas.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it. I haven't seen Goodfellas. Rise of Gru, I wanted to see it because Wise Blood, for those unfamiliar, a kind of dream rock pop artist.
Does
a song for the soundtrack. And she deserved better, I think.
I think this movie is one of not the worst movie in the Despicable Me franchise. Better than Minions, but one of the most lifeless and dry and like almost soul sucking. More so than I think even the first Minions. Yeah, like the Minions is worse than this by a long shot.
Minions has like a garbage charm to it almost.
But yeah, exactly. It has something weirdly not entertaining, like entertaining, but not like in a good way inherently. It's trash.
It's like watching someone vomit in slow motion. There's something kind of captivating about it.
but it's not as soul-suckingly boring and bland as this was to me. I thought this is probably the least likely of any of the Despicable Me films that I would ever rewatch, even over Minions.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I gave it a positive score.
It has nothing to say. It does nothing. Everything is boring.
But like it's like competent.
No, it's competent. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's mild better than technically better than Minions.
It makes more sense than whatever was going on in the Minions, dude.
But it's also like copy paste of like the simplest, most bland kids movie plot in the world.
Yeah,
given
it's
this
weird,
stuff,
dude. Rise of Gru, strange. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
I give it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
Then on the 22nd, I watched John Mulaney, Kid Gorgeous at Radio City.
Kid Gorgeous, baby.
Which was good. But it's a comedy special, so I'm not really going to talk about it. 4.5.
And then on the 23rd, we sat down and we watched Barbarian.
Barbarian.
Barbara Ann. Barbara Ann. That's what we watched.
Yeah, Barbarian. Very interesting film. Not really what I was expecting. I can't believe it's 103 minutes. I thought it would have been like 70 minutes.
Bill Skarsgård.
The whole Skarsgård family coming together.
They come together.
Dude, they're all in the filmmaking industry, so there's like 12 of them.
He's kind of killing the game here, honestly.
He's really fun.
I don't know. Justin Long is really fun too. It's just a fun movie.
It's a fun, really weird.
Honestly,
it is very strange. Structure is odd and unusual, and its climax is weird, and its characters are odd, but it all works together to be like this really fun, really unique horror experience that is not like. I saw somebody complaining. I don't remember. I think it might have been like Juliet or Adam or something complaining about like how overhyped, how weird this movie is.
It's not quite as like gonzo as many people were letting on, I think.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, you can't know anything about. I mean, technically speaking, they reveal everything you need to know about it in the first 30 minutes. I thought there was going to be like a second bigger reveal from the way people, even the characters talked, and I was just like, oh, well. Yeah. Still fun.
It's still like kind of bonkers, but not like that bonkers.
Yeah, you know? But it's just I think the bonkersness comes from how uniquely it's structured and how uniquely it presents itself.
Absolutely. It's such a fun time, dude. Like imagine just like getting a group of friends together and watching Barbarian. Like that would be so much fun. I don't
have too much to say about it, but like it's a fun movie, and I'm glad it got made, and I'm glad it got a pretty decent response.
Yeah. I'm glad it performed pretty well in theaters. Like, good on Smile and Barbarian for like indie horror doing well, you know? Right. I hope they keep making more stuff like this.
I give it a 4 out of 5.
I also gave it a 4 out of 5. Very good.
Then on the 23rd, I watched John Mulaney, The Comeback Kid.
Comeback Kid. I gotta watch his other specials.
I gave it 4 stars. Probably my least favorite of the John Mulaney specials I've seen, but it's still really, really good.
All right.
Then on the 24th, I watched The French Dispatch. Probably one of my least favorite of the Wes Anderson movies I've seen, but still pretty good. It's a lot better than Isle of Dogs.
Micah Yossi's going to come after you.
He's going to come and find me. He's going to kill me. But it's fine. I just don't think everything really works in this, but I also really have never, like, I have a strong distaste for anthology films, and I always have.
Embrace the anthology.
I don't think it thematically works that well to maintain an interesting movie. I get pretty bored with each segment. It's just not for me. It is not a movie for me. I don't think its grand picture, as I talked about, works that well in terms of, like, I don't know what it wanted to tell me. I don't know what it was saying. And it didn't really interest me enough to be like, let me delve deep into the deeper meaning of The French Dispatch.
Wow.
Because I just was kind of bored with it. But it looks amazing. It looks beautiful. The performances are really fantastic. It's still a Wes Anderson movie, and it's still kicking it like as hard as it can. It's just not for me.
How could you?
I gave it
First of all, how dare you?
I gave it a 4 out of 5. And then on the 24th, we gathered around and watched A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. It's a classic.
It's a classic.
An American classic.
So good. Not as good as Great Pumpkin, in my opinion.
I mean, like, if you're just comparing it to, like, other fall Charlie Brown stuff.
Well, I'm just comparing it to other Charlie Brown stuff.
I still think Christmas is, like, the definitive best one. But, like, I mean, I think this is second place. The physical comedy in this one is so funny. And, I mean, like, that's one of the biggest strengths of all the Charlie Brown stuff.
I think Great Pumpkin is probably one of the most contemplative and like visually beautiful of any of the Charlie Brown shorts.
I don't know. It's just never been my thing. Like, I think Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, there's so many like fun bits and
Robbie
good vocal
just likes
performances.
comedies. He just wants a joke. He doesn't want any depth.
Oh my goodness.
He doesn't want any meaning. He's just like, give me a darn joke already.
Charlie Brown goes to therapy in like every single one of these. For good reason.
I did not rate it, but it's very good.
It is very good.
Then on the 26th, I watched Seven. David Fincher. Morgan Freeman.
Your second Fincher movie that you've seen? I want to say
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Got to watch Benjamin Button.
I was about to say, because there are several that I want to see, but I have not seen anything else.
Yeah.
Just Zodiac.
There you go.
But very interesting film. I can see why it's such a classic. I don't think it's inherently as good as Zodiac, honestly, but it's a very interesting mystery. I just feel like it never fully. I don't think the conclusion is very satisfying, in my opinion, which is crazy because it's super, super, super engaging, like crime thriller. Probably one of the most engaging crime thrillers I've ever seen.
That's very cool.
It's very gross. It's very
I can't wait to
crazy.
See it, man.
And the performances are really fun.
I was about to say that's like the era of Brad Pitt that I really love, like his performances.
Yeah, the kind of young, thin, weird Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
He's kind of goofy.
He's like Ocean's Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Very good still.
Yeah.
Like I said, very odd though. But I give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Very cool. Also on the 26th, I watched Jared Carmichael, Rothaniel, which is I guess a stand-up special, which, I mean, he's sitting down.
I can't believe it. He's sitting down the whole time. I mean, come on. What are they doing here?
But the main reason I wanted to check it out is because Bo Burnham directed it. And, you know, as it turns out, it was very, very good. Like, I mean, like most people I follow love it, and I loved it. It's a surprisingly intimate and like insightful comedy routine, which, you know, I think honestly my biggest complaint is that it's not like super funny to me. Like, it's not that funny, but it's also like super engaging and really, really fantastic in a bunch of other ways. So it's not really that big of a detractor. It's really well edited, really well lit and shot. Honestly, the crowd reaction stuff, which I know a lot of other people have mentioned, like the way the crowd interacts with him is like almost too perfect. Like you could almost convince me it was completely scripted or something. But
with Bo Burnham behind it, I wouldn't be surprised.
But it was really great, really engaging. I gave it a 5 initially, and I bumped it down to a 4. I'm going back and forth. I honestly don't know what I would rate it. But it is very good. Definitely a big recommendation if you are up to a TV mature stand-up special.
Then also on that very same day,
on this very same day,
I watched Raging Bull. Martin Scorsese.
Yes.
Very, very good.
You may have heard of him before.
Not my favorite in the world. Like I said, there's something very, like, it's a lot more unpleasant of a movie to watch.
It's one of the Schrader Scorsese joints, Micah.
I love
Can't
Paul
wait
Schrader.
for Taxi Driver.
I love Paul Schrader's writing, and I love Martin Scorsese's direction.
Yeah.
So if you can guess, I really loved this. This is probably just one of the most, like, I guess personally, like, oof kind of movies. Like I said, I was watching it and one of the scenes like really reminded me of a short film that I had made. So I was like, man,
Mike is like Schrader's just like me for real.
Oh no. But yeah, it's an interesting movie about really, 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 really terrible people.
Nice.
And that makes for an interesting watch. That's not always the most pleasant, but it is kind of a masterpiece of filmmaking in my opinion.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5. One of the most personally, like, emotionally affecting movies I've seen from Martin Scorsese. Cool.
Right after I finished Rothaniel, I turned on another Bo Burnham special that he directed, not one of his specials. Kate Berlant, Cinnamon in the Wind, which, fun fact, Kate Berlant is a Sorry to Bother You alumni. I guess she plays one of the wives.
Wow.
this was much better than Don't Worry, Darling. And I don't know. It's good.
Wait, Don't Worry, Darling.
Oh, I meant to say Don't Worry, Darling. She's also in Sorry to Bother You, which is kind of strange that I mixed them up.
I thought she looked familiar.
Yeah, no, she plays one of the wives in Don't Worry, Darling. She also plays one of the one of the workers in Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah, I remember her in Don't Worry, Darling.
But this is it's a solid special. It's no Rothaniel for sure, but all of the visual ideas and it being in black and white, the mirror, how she does physical comedy and improv, it brings up a lot of really interesting topics, and I like watching it. It's a good time.
And I like watching it.
Cinnamon in the Wind, solid as it can be. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Okay.
Then on the 20,
I watched
that.
I watched a documentary.
That is, a documentary.
I watched Director by Night, documentary by Anthony Giacchino. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Is it Giacchino or is it Giacchino?
I don't know. And it's all about Michael Giacchino.
Then it's probably the other Giacchino, not Giacchino.
Well, yeah, probably. And it was very cool. It kind of documents Michael Giacchino's rise to working in Hollywood, how he always wanted to be a director, and it showcases a lot of his movies that he made when he was a kid. And I don't know, it was a really sweet and touching documentary. I really liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Definitely recommend it if you want to be a director. It's very cool.
Then what did we watch, Remy?
Then we went out to the old mall.
Just yesterday.
We went
to the darn biggest AMC around. not actually.
Not
true,
really.
But
we went out to the mall.
It is a big AMC.
They had an AMC inside of it, and we watched.
We did. It's not like we went to the mall and then we're like, oh look, Glass Onion's on. We went to the mall specifically to that AMC.
I was setting the scene
to go
Micah.
see Glass Onion.
I was setting the scene. We walk into the mall and there's an AMC inside,
and we're just like, oh look, an AMC.
There's layers.
So you can't say that. You got to be like we were going to the mall to go to the AMC. No, we went to the mall and there was an AMC.
Okay, all right. We watched Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, the new Rian Johnson joint.
Why do you keep saying joint?
Joint?
Stop saying joint.
What do you want from me?
You're gonna be like, oh yeah, there's that new Pop-Tart. It's a Kellogg's joint or something like that. I don't even know if Kellogg's makes Pop-Tarts. But that's the vibe.
Glass Onion. When it comes to Netflix, we will probably be doing an episode about it.
I guarantee it.
It was so good.
Knives Out's one of my favorite movies. I've seen it 18 times.
18 times. That's quite a few.
So I was very, 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 very excited for Glass Onion, hoping it could stick the landing. I trust Rian Johnson. He is cool and groovy, and I've seen almost all of his projects. And lo and behold, it very much sticks the landing. It's probably just about as good as the first one.
Honestly, yeah. I think it's just as good.
I think I like the first one more still. But
yeah. I mean, the vibes are really there in the first one,
Yeah.
This one does not
different.
Have that.
It's completely different vibes. The vibes are still there, just different vibes.
Different vibes. Which, I really loved it. It's just so funny and so well written. And so entertaining. It's so viscerally entertaining. I don't
Again, there's so much about this that works. It's engaging to watch. It's interesting. It's funny, like you said. I don't understand how he pulls off this. And again, will probably always be the craziest thing to me, because even the first Knives Out, it wasn't as apparent. There was still quite a few 2019 references.
Yeah, the political stuff is very much of that era.
But even in Knives Out, it's done in a little bit more of an awkward way, but purposefully. Again,
it serves a purpose.
The Hamilton reference is supposed to be embarrassing.
Dude.
That kind of a thing. Whereas this one, it seamlessly pulls off all of these cultural references and of the times things. Benoit Blanc plays freaking Among Us. For some reason.
It works.
Again, and it works seamlessly. It feels so natural for all of these characters to be doing all of these things.
It's wild.
And I don't know how he pulled that off.
It's kind of a Buck Wild continuation of Benoit Blanc.
It's a crazy story. Even compared to the first one, which is pretty crazy. This one is crazy. He swung for sci-fi fences with this one, which is interesting.
Yeah, this one is more sci-fi. I don't know. It's kind of bonkers, even more so than the first one.
Which again, knowing Rian Johnson's sensibilities, I kind of understand what he's going for with this in terms of I can definitely see him wanting to explore different essential, almost as not different genres because they're all going to be in the mystery genre, but different like types of mysteries, like different feels for what a mystery movie can be.
He's just gonna make a new Knives Out movie to mock each different kind of rich person. Micah.
Exactly.
That's what is the plan.
Man, I don't know, because again, people were talking. They were like, "Dude, he shot this like 2 years ago. How does it?
It feels like it.
How does
was
it
written
like
yesterday?
It's billionaire thing and like Dave Bautista's character. It feels so relevant to the current times.
Honestly, like I think looking back at these, like when I'm like 80 years old and I like show my grandkids Knives Out, it's like this is what it was like back then.
Really, like this is exactly what it was like.
Right.
Marta Cabrera.
Marta Cabrera, exactly.
See, but the biggest that's why this one isn't as good. It doesn't have Ana de Armas.
Wow.
Biggest reason.
But yeah, it's really fantastic. Definitely try and catch it in theaters if you can.
Dude, I think today is its last day in theaters. So
well,
maybe tomorrow. I think it might be tomorrow.
We publish this. Someone's like, "Oh no, I didn't realize," and they rush out and see it. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah, go watch it.
It was mostly sold out when we tried to get tickets.
Well, no, again, dude, I think this is like the third best performing movie in the box offices right now, which it's in like 600 theaters total.
Such a small release.
Which again, it and the Fablemans both have about an equal amount of theaters that they're running in, and
new Spielberg
they're
movie.
Both in the top 5.
Steven Spielberg.
They're both in the top 5 of the box office right now, even though they compared to like the others, which is like a Black Panther and stuff.
Oh yeah, Wakanda Forever.
And Wakanda Forever and stuff like that. Like it's such, they have like probably triple or quadruple the amount of theaters, and yet these things are keeping up with them because people want to watch good movies.
People want to see Benoit Blanc.
People want to see Benoit Blanc. Netflix, why are you keeping it in theaters for such a little amount of time?
It kills me.
But yeah, that's what we watched.
Yeah.
We watched Grand Budapest after that, but that's
watched it last night. Very fun time. Go watch some movies. Try and catch Glass Onion if you can.
Definitely.
Go watch a Wes Anderson movie.
Go watch The Northman if you want to. Go watch.
I do want to watch them.
Go watch The Northman, Robbie. Lady Bird, Goodfellas. I watched some fantastic classic
Blade Runner
cinema.
2049.
This was a very good month for first watches.
We watched a bunch of really good movies lately. It's good stuff.
Which is cool. I love doing that.
I like just watching good movies once in a while.
All right, like I don't know. I don't understand why people, when presented with good movies and bad movies, are just like, yeah, let me watch a bunch of bad movies.
Watch the bad movies.
Watch good movies.
Go watch a movie.
Go watch a movie.
Is the really little takeaway here.
And have a good
Yes.
Merry Christmas. And a Happy New Year.
Wait a minute. A bit premature here.
Happy Kwanzaa. When is Kwanzaa?
I don't know. Really showing our knowledge here on recently.
Well, I don't know when Hanukkah starts either, so it's really just any other.
Right. We're once again showing how painfully white and American we are, Mike.
I was about to say, well, you know, Kwanzaa and Hanukkah are celebrated by a lot of white people.
That's true. It's very true. Very true.
So,
but
just
anyway,
yeah.
Enjoy winter, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.